Welcome back to the Eli and Kylie Show. Today we're talking about something most people barely even notice anymore. Surveillance.
Right. And we need to be very clear right out of the gate here. We are not talking about, searching for a pair of sneakers online and then seeing a targeted ad for those exact shoes on your social media feed an hour later. That is old news.
Yeah, we are so far past that.
Yeah.
We are talking about the everyday items you already own and interact with. Your car, your doorbell, the local grocery store down the street. They are quietly building a massive, invisible profile on you.
Exactly.
And the goal isn't just to sell you targeted ads anymore. The goal is to control your behavior and ultimately to empty your wallet. People are going to call us crazy for this, but everything we are about to share is documented fact.
Yeah, we spent the last week going through a massive stack of primary sources. We are talking about federal legal settlements, comprehensive government studies from the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and extensive worker surveys from organizations like Oxfam. The paper trail is just staggering when you pull it all together.
It really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to take all that dense legal and academic material and expose the invisible web of surveillance we all live in using plain, everyday English.
No corporate jargon.
Exactly. No corporate jargon. So let's unpack this. I want to start by looking at the stuff we physically invite into our lives. We surround ourselves with these smart conveniences. Think about the Amazon Ring doorbell.
Right. It is incredibly popular. I mean, in 2020 alone, Amazon sold 1.4 million of these video doorbells.
Wow.
Yeah, they are practically ubiquitous in some neighborhoods now. But you have to understand the mechanism behind it. It is not just a camera recording who drops off a package. It's an ambient data collector.
How does that actually work, though? I mean, if I don't press the button, what is it collecting?
Well, it uses built-in motion sensors and computer vision algorithms. So even if no one ever presses the physical button, the lens is constantly scanning its field of view.
Always watching.
Always. And the software is trained to categorize what it sees, like identifying a person, a vehicle, or, an animal. But the real value isn't the video footage itself. It's the metadata.
Okay, the timestamps and stuff.
Exactly. The system logs exact timestamps of every event, so it learns the precise time you leave for work every morning, the time you get home, who visits you, and when.
So even if I live a totally quiet life and my doorbell never actually rings, privacy experts are saying the system is still making inferences about my social life just based on motion and timing.
Right.
It's basically building a behavioral profile of my physical movements.
Precisely. And what's fascinating here is how that data gets leveraged at scale. Amazon historically partnered with over 400 police departments across the country.
400?
Yeah, over 400. They essentially created a digital deputized neighborhood watch. They built a law enforcement portal where police could request footage from users in a specific geographical area with just a single click.
Bypassing the whole warrant process.
Completely bypassing the traditional friction of getting a judge to sign a warrant. Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah.
And I saw a note in the research about a patent Amazon filed for something called Amazon Sidewalk. It literally used the phrase surveillance as a service. What exactly is that?
So Amazon Sidewalk is a protocol that allows your Amazon devices to share a slice of your internet bandwidth with your neighbor's devices.
Right.
Yeah, it creates this massive, low bandwidth Bluetooth mesh network across entire cities. It connects everything. But, it's not just an Amazon problem. Let's look at Apple.
Okay.
There was a huge class action lawsuit, Lopez v. Apple, that recently settled for $95 million.
That's the Siri lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
How does a company that constantly markets itself as a champion of privacy end up paying out $95 million for recording people?
It comes down to how voice assistants actually function mechanically. Siri was marketed as a tool that only listens when you say the wake word, "Hey Siri." But physically, for a device to hear a wake word, it has to be constantly listening. Your phone has a tiny, dedicated audio buffer that constantly records and overwrites a 3-second loop of audio.
Just waiting for the word.
Waiting for the acoustic signature of "Hey Siri," yeah.
Oh, wow. So the microphone is literally never off.
It's never off.
Yeah.
And whistleblowers revealed that the technology was highly susceptible to false triggers. The software would misinterpret everyday sounds.
Oh, I read about this. You would hear like the zip of a jacket or someone just saying a word that sounded vaguely similar, like seriously.
Yep.
And the device would suddenly flush that audio buffer to the cloud and start recording you. And these recordings weren't just stored anonymously on some cold server somewhere, were they?
No, they were being actively reviewed. Up to 1,000 of these audio clips per shift were sent to human contractors to grade for accuracy.
Human beings were listening to them.
Yeah, the companies needed humans to listen to the audio to tell the algorithm, no, that was a zipper, not a voice.
But because of the false triggers, these human contractors were hearing incredibly intimate stuff. I mean, the lawsuit detailed how strangers halfway across the world were listening in on confidential medical consultations, drug transactions, and even sexual encounters.
All recorded without consent.
It's like hiring a security guard for your house, but then realizing the guard is secretly live streaming your living room to strangers. At what point does convenience stop being worth it?
That brings us to a foundational concept in sociology called the panopticon.
The panopticon.
Yeah. Imagine a circular 19th century prison with a watchtower right in the center. The prisoners can never see into the tower, so they never know exactly when they are being watched.
Oh, creepy.
Because of that constant uncertainty, they eventually start policing their own behavior. They act as if they are always being watched. That is what our smart homes are becoming. A digital panopticon where the surveillance is so ambient, so baked into the background, we just accept it.
Right. And it's bad enough when that panopticon is inside your living room. But it feels like the second you leave your house, you aren't actually escaping the surveillance. You're just handing the baton to another system.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about cars. Because you might think of your car as just a metal box to get you from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But modern vehicles are basically mobile data centers on wheels.
They absolutely are. Modern cars are equipped with telematics control units. Think of it as a built-in cellular modem bolted directly into the car's central nervous system.
Okay.
It communicates with hundreds of internal sensors. It tracks your exact GPS location down to the meter, which, can reveal highly sensitive behavioral data.
Like where you're going.
Yeah, like if you are driving to a place of worship, a specialized medical clinic, or a political protest. But it also tracks the granular mechanics of your driving. How hard you brake, how rapidly you accelerate, and even your seatbelt usage.
Okay, but who is looking at my braking data? If I have to slam on the brakes because a squirrel ran into the road, why does anyone care?
Well, the insurance industry cares deeply, and this brings us to the General Motors smart driver scandal.
Yeah. All right.
GM collected all this granular driving data from millions of vehicles and secretly sold it to massive data brokers. We're talking about companies you rarely interact with directly, with names like LexisNexis and Verisk.
I really want to understand the mechanics of this pipeline.
Yeah.
Why would LexisNexis want to buy the data of me braking for a squirrel?
It comes down to actuarial math. Actuaries have proven that telematics, the raw data of how physically aggressive you are behind the wheel, is a vastly superior predictor of future accident risk compared to traditional static factors.
Like your age or credit score.
Exactly. So these data brokers aggregate your driving telemetry into massive consumer disclosure reports. Some drivers requested their files and received 130-page documents detailing every time they accelerated too fast over a 6-month period.
130 pages.
Yeah. And GM packaged all this data and made roughly $20 million selling it to the brokers.
Wait, so you buy the car, you pay for the gas, you pay for the insurance, and the car company makes millions secretly selling your braking habits to your insurance company so they can charge you more.
That is exactly what happened. Insurance companies bought these driver profiles from the data brokers and used them to quietly adjust risk models, which jacked up people's insurance premiums.
Unbelievable.
Drivers had absolutely no idea why their rates were suddenly skyrocketing. They were being financially penalized by a secret algorithm. GM eventually faced massive backlash and had to pay a $12.75 million penalty in California simply because they misled drivers into participating in this program without clear consent.
Tell me this doesn't bother you. You think you're alone in your car singing to the radio.
Yeah.
But your vehicle is basically snitching on you to data brokers, all hidden in murky fine print that nobody ever actually reads.
And the privacy implications extend beyond just insurance companies. A recent congressional investigation revealed that 9 major automakers, including massive trusted brands like Toyota, Hyundai, and BMW, admitted to giving up GPS location data to authorities without requiring a warrant.
Wait, how is that legal? Doesn't the Fourth Amendment protect us from warrantless searches?
It exploits a legal loophole known as the third-party doctrine.
What's that?
The legal theory is that because you voluntarily gave your location data to the car company when you accepted their terms of service, you no longer have a reasonable expectation of privacy for that specific data.
Oh, I see.
So the car company can hand it over to law enforcement without a judge ever signing a warrant. They broke their own voluntary promises from 2014, where they pledged to require a court order before handing over your location.
So the data brokers and the authorities know exactly when I leave my house and where I drive.
Yeah.
Which leads to the next obvious question. Where are you going? Most of the time, you're going shopping. And it turns out that exact same invisible data pipeline is now being used in real time to change the prices of the food and goods you buy. Let's dig into this FTC study.
Yeah, this is a major development. The FTC recently launched a massive 6B study into a practice formerly known as surveillance pricing.
Okay.
They are heavily investigating middleman companies, major consulting and tech firms like McKinsey and MasterCard to understand exactly how they use personal data profiles to set targeted, individualized prices for consumers.
I saw this term in the FTC study, algorithmic price optimization. That just sounds like corporate speak for price gouging.
Yeah.
How does that actually work mechanically? How do they know what to charge me versus what to charge someone else?
It fundamentally breaks the traditional concept of a price tag. Instead of a gallon of milk costing the exact same for everyone who walks into the store, companies use data brokers to predict your individual pain point.
My pain point.
Yeah, they use a technique called probabilistic matching.
What does that mean?
It means they stitch together your identity across devices. They take your IP address, your mobile advertising ID, your location data from a weather app on your phone, and your browsing history.
All of it.
All of it. They look at whether you put an item in a digital cart last week and abandoned it. They even track the velocity of your mouse movements on a web page to gauge your hesitation.
Wait, my mouse movements.
Yeah, how fast you move your mouse. And the algorithm instantly analyzes all of this to figure out the absolute maximum amount of money you, specifically, are willing to part with in that exact second.
That is wild. The research had some crazy examples of this in the real world. The FTC study highlighted how Instacart basket totals varied by an average of 7% for the exact same grocery items, depending entirely on the user profile the algorithm generated.
Exactly.
There was also that case with the Princeton Review, where they were found to be charging more for online test prep services in zip codes with high Asian demographics.
Yes. The Princeton Review case is a classic example of algorithmic bias. The algorithm essentially correlated demographic density with a higher cultural emphasis on education.
Which means they'll pay more.
Right, determining that families in those zip codes had a higher willingness to pay, and it adjusted the prices upward accordingly. It is ruthless efficiency.
There was also a hypothetical scenario outlined in the reporting that blew my mind, because the technology to do it exists right now. An algorithm could theoretically charge a woman more for sanitary products simply because the third-party period tracking app sold data showing she's currently menstruating.
Yeah. From an economic standpoint, that targets what we call inelastic demand. If the algorithm knows you have an immediate biological need for a product, it knows you will pay almost any price for it. It removes your ability to walk away from the transaction.
Okay, I can almost wrap my head around how that happens on a laptop or a smartphone. But the research points out this is moving into physical grocery stores.
It is.
They're actively replacing traditional paper price tags with electronic shelf labels, or ESLs. Wait, how does a plastic shelf tag possibly know it's me walking down the cereal aisle? Just scanning my face.
It doesn't need to scan your face. It just communicates with the supercomputer in your pocket. These electronic shelf labels are digital, battery-powered e-ink displays. The aisles are equipped with Bluetooth low-energy beacons.
Okay.
When you walk down the aisle, the beacon pings the MAC address, the unique hardware identifier of your smartphone. It cross-references that with your store loyalty app or a data broker profile, and it can instantly flip the price on the digital tag via radio frequency before you even reach for the cereal.
So imagine this scenario. If I walk into a store with my wealthy friend, and the digital tag changes to charge me more because my phone battery is critically low, or the algorithm knows I just searched for a divorce attorney and I'm stressed out and prone to impulse buying, how is that a free market?
It's not a free market at all. A free market relies on perfect information. Surveillance pricing fundamentally undermines the ability of a consumer to comparison shop.
Right.
If prices are constantly shifting like a slot machine based on invisible data profiles, you never know if you're getting a fair deal. It transforms shopping from a transparent transaction into a psychological game where the house always has the mathematical advantage.
I guarantee somebody listening works for one of these companies, and they probably justify it as dynamic pricing or personalized discounts. But when it's built on secret profiles of our behavior, it feels a lot more like extraction.
Extraction is the perfect word. Which leads us to the most intense part of this entire system. Because it's one thing when these massive data networks squeeze us to buy a more expensive box of cereal.
Yeah.
But what happens when the exact same technology, the tracking, the algorithms, the extraction, is weaponized against the people actually working for these companies?
Right, because the surveillance doesn't stop when you clock in. In fact, it gets much worse.
It does. We are witnessing the rapid rise of what is colloquially called bossware. A recent New York Times study found that 8 out of 10 of America's largest private employers now use some kind of productivity tracking tool.
8 out of 10.
Yeah. But the most extreme examples are found in the massive logistics operations of companies like Amazon and Walmart.
To play devil's advocate here, if Amazon is running a logistics facility the size of 10 football fields, moving millions of packages a day, don't they need algorithms to keep things efficient? What crosses the line from efficiency to bossware?
The line is crossed when the algorithm lacks human context and begins treating humans as failing machines. At Amazon, warehouse workers are managed directly by algorithms through a policy called time-off task, or TOT.
Explain the physical mechanism of that. How does the building track them?
It happens through the handheld radio frequency scanner guns the workers use. The software calculates the exact milliseconds between scanning one barcode and the next.
Milliseconds.
Yes. The algorithms generate a targeted quota based on the average speed of the warehouse. If a worker pauses to stretch, if they drop a box and have to pick it up, or if they take 3 minutes to walk across the warehouse to use the bathroom, the scanner gun flags it as time-off task.
That's awful.
It leads to these terrifying conditions where workers have repeatedly reported urinating in bottles just to avoid algorithmic penalties that automatically trigger disciplinary action or firing.
The scale of that monitoring is truly dystopian, and it physically breaks people. Worker advocacy groups refer to it as an injury machine.
Exactly.
Washington State OSHA even issued strict citations against Amazon for willfully violating safety standards. They linked the incredibly high physical injury occurrences directly to Amazon's automated systems of monitoring and disciplining workers. The system forces people to move faster than their bodies can handle.
And the workers are acutely aware of the invisible eyes on them. According to extensive surveys by Oxfam, 77% of Amazon workers and 62% of Walmart workers say the technology can always tell if they are actively engaged in their work.
And it's not just warehouses, right? It's delivery drivers, call centers.
Exactly. What's deeply concerning is the de-skilling and micromanagement of human labor across all sectors. You have wearable wristbands tracking a worker's physical exertion via accelerometers.
Wow.
You have routing software dictating a delivery driver's every single turn, completely removing their ability to use their own knowledge of a neighborhood.
Taking the human element completely out.
Completely. And in white-collar settings and call centers, companies are deploying AI that analyzes the amplitude and frequency of a worker's voice to constantly nudge their behavior.
Are you serious?
Yes, the screen will literally pop up a warning telling the worker they sound tired or lacking empathy, forcing them to adjust their emotional output in real time.
It's the digital equivalent of an 18th century factory overseer with a whip. But instead of a person standing over you, the overseer is invisible, living inside your wristband and your scanner, and it never, ever blinks.
And this fundamentally shifts the power dynamic in the workplace. When every chat message, every email, and every physical movement is recorded and graded by an algorithm, it isolates workers.
Right, they can't connect.
Exactly. They are atomized, competing against the computer rather than socializing with their peers. This has a massive, documented chilling effect on workplace organizing, or even just communicating about unsafe working conditions.
Maybe we're overthinking this, or maybe we're not.
If we synthesize everything we've pulled from these sources today, the overarching and frankly unsettling takeaway is this. We are willingly buying the very devices, our phones, our connected cars, our smart home tech that corporations are using to build the infrastructure of our own surveillance.
Yeah.
They are using these networks to extract more labor from us at work through algorithmic management and more money from us at the store through surveillance pricing. Surveillance is no longer just about selling you targeted ads. It's about financial and physical control.
If you think we're completely wrong, Tell us why in the comments. And if this deep dive made you look at the world a little differently, share it with somebody else.
We highly encourage you to debate this down in the comments. Have you had a creepy encounter with targeted pricing online?
Yeah.
Have you experienced bossware at your job? Share your stories.
And please remember to like, subscribe, and share. All of the sources we use for this deep dive, the FTC 6B study, the ACLU reports, the Oxfam surveys, and the legal settlements, they're all linked in the description. Go read the primary material for yourself.
Next time, we're going to be exploring another aspect of everyday technology that will completely change how you view your digital footprint.
You won't want to miss it. But before you go, think about this. We spent this whole deep dive looking at how corporations surveil us to extract money and labor. But what happens when these massive corporate databases, the logs of every place you drove, every physical movement in your house, every stress-induced purchase, what happens when they are inevitably hacked? Or when they're subpoenaed by a future government with totally different laws? The infrastructure for total behavioral control is already built. And right now, we're the ones paying the electric bill to keep it running.